Good morning, Max. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Julien? How's Paris? How's the evening? What's up?
Everything is great. I spent some time this morning actually looking through the mailbag.
Hmm.
And well, it didn't take long because, to be honest, we didn't have like a million different stories sent through. So please, if you do have a story, feel free to
Please
send it
share.
that way. Um, but I found a pretty good one though, and I think it is worth sharing, especially because it's kind of positive one, and we don't have so many of those. So
Oh, positive's good. Positive's
yeah,
good.
all right. So let's do that. So here is a story, and it actually starts with an intro, which we usually don't have. So I'll share that intro as
Oh
well.
wow! Look at this. A very careful writer.
Dear Max and Julian, please note that it starts with Dear Max. Don't know
Yes.
what that
Yes.
means,
All right.
but
Why aren't I leading with this one? But I guess it's good. You got it.
Dear Max and Julian, I recently enjoyed a positive experience that I wanted to share with you. Not sure it'd be long enough to make it to your show, but let's see how you could twist it. So, sorry to disappoint. There's not going to be much of a twist for the reading part, at least, but we'll see what we can say about it. A few weeks ago, I ordered a custom item online for Christmas. So that was now a month and a half ago, roughly.
Yeah.
A week
Wow.
A week later, I realized the order was still being processed while Christmas was less than a month away. So I reached out via their web form to express my concerns without any expectations. I received a response less than 24 hours later with an apology for the delay and a guarantee from the agent that he would personally make sure the order would be immediately prioritized and the delivery
Wow.
bumped to priority mail in order to make sure it'd be under my Christmas tree in time. So I was very pleased with the answer, yet not totally convinced any of it would actually happen. But a week later, a good 2.5 weeks before Christmas, the parcel actually arrived through express delivery. The order was right, everything was well packed, all perfect. You can bet I'll be buying from them again next time. How was that for a positive story?
Wow. It's both positive and straightforward and simple. I like that.
Now we're gonna have to scratch our heads a little to make something out of it.
Yeah.
Everything, everything
Well, I
was
like.
good.
Yeah. I mean, there are a couple things I like about this. Does he talk at all about the size of who he bought this from, the company?
No,
Doesn't sound like there's
no, we,
anything
we
about
don't have
that.
a name. We don't know what kind of item. We just a
Okay,
custom item
just an
online.
item from the store.
Yeah.
Um, I like. I mean, not only was this a good, I got a quick response. They said they'd bump up the shipping, and it got there in plenty of time. But it sounds like a very personal response from a supervisor. So, kind of to some of the other conversations we've had, I'm guessing this is a smaller organization. It's a little hard to at scale do that sort of thing. But it we talk about personalization a lot, and it's funny, we've been having this discussion at Forrester a little bit. What does personalization mean, and when does it matter? And personalization, you know, there's a lot of talk about personalization being a bot speaks more in a way that you would expect a bot to speak. And companies make a big deal about that. And honestly, who cares? I can't think of. I mean, there may be some subtle. I feel better about things, but that's really not what's helpful. What I think when we talk about personalization, what I think is really helpful is, it's the same story I give over and over. It's I know who you are. I can anticipate why you're reaching out, so I can get down to it right away. It's the old, I know you're flying tomorrow. I don't say, hi, who are you? I say, Max, are you calling about your flight tomorrow? But this is different even than that. This is, I'm the supervisor. I'm taking control. I'm going to make sure that this happens and take care of you. And I think it's telling and kind of depressing, and I would do the same, that even after getting a very specific and personal note like that, the person's comment was, well, we'll see. I don't know if it's going to come through or not. So that's kind of some of my initial reactions to this. I don't know what you think.
Well, there are a few things I like here. First, interestingly, you mentioned twice, maybe three times, the word supervisor. Not saying that's not the case, but in the story it's saying, with an apology for the delay and a guarantee from the agent. Now,
Oh, it was the agent. I'm sorry. I don't know why I heard supervisor.
the agent could very well be the supervisor in that situation, but that's not at least how it was perceived.
Okay.
And that's
But
interesting. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
That's interesting because it goes back to the thing we've been saying over and over again about empowerment. Now, if it is a supervisor, then well, that's probably within the supervisor's standards abilities. But if it is an agent, it means that's an empowered agent that knows when it matters and what to do about it. And that is actually what's one of the things I love about it. There are a few things I like about it. It's at no point they seem to guarantee it's going to arrive before Christmas, but they guarantee they would do everything. Let me read that sentence again. He would personally make sure the order would be immediately prioritized. So that's about production, and delivery bumped to priority mail in order to make sure it arrive under my Christmas tree in time. They don't really guarantee it will arrive under the Christmas tree in time, but they guarantee they're going to do everything they can, and they bump the delivery. And I don't know where that was sent from to where. I'm guessing international probably. But bumping a parcel from standard mail to priority mail, there's a cost attached to it, and apparently no extra money was requested. They managed to deliver it 2.5 weeks before the deadline, meaning if anything went wrong, they would probably still have time to fix it. That plus the care and the empathy and the speed of response that you mentioned. Sorry, there are quite a few very positive things here in that story.
Yeah, you're right, and I apologize for mishearing, or I'm not sure why I got supervisor out of that, but I think you're right. It's actually a better story with an empowered agent. And my question about how big the company was, now it could be a big company, right? If you do empower your agents, then you can scale something like that. And another thing that really strikes me about this story is it's very good that you're the one reading this, because to have a story with a good shipping experience, it's something you need. I think therapeutically for you, this is very important.
I mean, there are two ways to read it. Either it's it can happen. You need to keep your hopes up for the future, or it happens to others and just be jealous about it. I don't quite know yet how to read it, but
yeah, I guess that's
a good
true.
story nonetheless. True. Now, there's something interesting you mentioned that's not directly related to the story, but you were saying that nowadays companies care a lot about personalizing their chatbot, and by personalizing they mean using the right tone of voice to kind of talk the way a human being would talk. And you were saying that should not be the main focus, so that should not be a priority. It's probably not what personalization means. And I would agree and disagree with that statement. I would agree, meaning that should definitely not be priority number one. It's probably lower on the list, because you first need to get the basics in place. If your chatbot is frustrating, if you never get the right answer, if you don't get things right, if you just build a decision tree with the chatbot actually asking random questions over and over again versus having a real conversation, that's pointless. But if you nailed it, and if you have a efficient chatbot to start with that actually helpful for your customers, then having the right tone of voice, then that's the logical next step that actually makes a big difference in the experience. It just has zero impact if you don't have the basics in place.
Couldn't agree with you more. And in some ways, it was what I was saying is when personalization is, I know who you are and I know why you're reaching out and I do straight, that's another way of saying that's more than saying you got to get the basics right. That's why that kind of personalization really appeals to me, because it's not just getting the basics right, but it's really serving and being efficient, which is a win for everybody. That's good for you because you get your package in plenty of time for Christmas, and it's good for the company because the agent's moving on to the next interaction or whatever. eh, eh, yeah, a personalized, and it's kind of interesting. They're even getting to the point where they start knowing your demographics, and your bot takes on subtly different personality traits based on demographics, which is really cool nerd stuff. But again, it's so subtle. I agree. It is. I would rather talk to a thing that talks. I'll just say that talks my language, if you will, and I don't mean that in a literal sense. But it's not. It,
last year, was it last year or was it the year before that? I can't remember. You told us a story. That was a while ago, so I can't remember the details of the story. But you had a story, I think that was about your dad, and that was probably about a phone plan, I think, where there was a serious disconnect between this plan is made for teenagers and they speak a specific language and a specific path and all of that. And your dad was not quite a teenager anymore.
Yeah, by a long shot.
And what I'm thinking is, if you are able to detect my demographics, just make sure you enable the right channels, that you have the right flows, that you get me to talk to the right people before you adapt to my tone of voice. Because forget about the slang I may be using in my personal life. If you haven't got the basics in place, that's something missing. There is, however, another super important thing I've not mentioned in that story, which is something I care a lot about, which is FTR, the first call or first contact resolution. That is a win, because how often do you send a single email and not only get all your answers, but get your problem solved within the first exchange? That's something that should happen very often, but it's not quite the case, and that's pretty amazing here. That's really a perfect score they've got with that customer experience.
This is a wonderful story. I agree, and I think it's singularly difficult to do an email, so all the more impressive that they're able to do that. Can you read the "I'm going to get this shipped" sentence one more time? I have one last thought about it.
I received a response less than 24 hours later with an apology for the delay and a guarantee from the agent that he would personally make sure the order would be immediately prioritized and the delivery bumped to priority mail in order to make sure it'd be under my Christmas tree in time.
What the other thing I really like about that is the language. We work with a bank, and they did a huge investment, multi-million-dollar investment in training around language. And this is a beautiful example of doing it right. He personally, I may not be getting the words exactly right, but he personally guaranteed that I statements, I am your advocate. I'm going to take control of this. I guarantee. Again, and he's not guaranteeing it's going to get, this is beautifully written, actually. He's not guaranteeing it's going to get there on time. He's guaranteeing everything that can be done is going to be done. I can't promise that express shipping isn't going to fail, because it does, especially right around Christmas. But here is everything that can be done. I am going to make sure that this company puts every resource available behind getting you this order. That is also a win, just how well worded and thought through that is.
You're touching a very important point. I never thought about this, but how frustrating is that when you talk to an employee, not necessarily an agent, could be an employee in a store, could be whatever. How frustrating is that when an employee is just hiding behind HQ is saying, corporate is saying, the company is saying,
right?
What are you saying? I mean, I'm talking to you. I'm sharing my thoughts. I'm sharing my story. Stop hiding behind the rules. And very often you just don't have a choice. Yeah. you're empowered or you're
Right.
not. But
Right.
don't hide behind the rules. Tell me what you guarantee. Tell me what you're going to do about it. Because very often we're asking people to say we, to say the company will, to say my brand name will. It actually feels very good when someone says, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I guarantee. The I is actually very important in a conversation. And here, I agree, beautifully done.
Yeah. And I think a good way to wrap this up, or at least move into like, what are the lessons here, is you just went back to empowerment. I think that is really the the core of what made this so successful. Is the agent had the authority to, he wasn't just saying we're calling him a he. I don't know if he really was a he. He wasn't just saying he did it. And it clearly
Yeah.
came from him. He had the right to. Now, maybe in the background, he did 5 layers of approval, did that, but let's just live in a world where that's not what happened. That he was empowered, he was able to do it, and he delivered. And I think everything comes from that in this story.
You know what? Typically, I would like to close with a few learnings, and there are quite a few here. But I'm thinking, should we dwell for a second on how do you empower people? Because that's a topic that's been coming back over and over again. And it's very easy to say on a show with 2 cameras and 2 microphones, much more difficult to implement in an actual contact center. But there are a few tricks here and there, because it's actually very similar to work from home, if you think about it. It's all about trusting your agents.
Mhm.
It's all about, empowering them starts with trust. No trust, no empowerment. That's as simple as this. And you can possibly put a few steps in between, follow the scripts, and you're fully empowered, make your own decisions. There could be, something in between. What I've seen happening in the past, can't remember what company that was. That was in Asia for sure, but can't remember which industry it was. I've seen the contact center director, manager, whatever title that was, gave a specific budget for all the agents to use in order to satisfy customers. So it could be for refund, it could be for bumping to priority mail, it could be for whatever you want to use it for to satisfy your customers. The agents were getting, what would you call that, commissions or bonus based on their customer satisfaction scores, right? So they really wanted to satisfy customers. But since the manager did not necessarily want the entire budget to be used up every month that way, because that was the easy way out, he actually made sure that any leftover budget by the end of the month would be shared as a bonus among all the agents. So you are really much encouraged to satisfy your customers. You're empowered to make decisions. You have a budget at your disposal that you can use. But if you manage to satisfy your customers and not use a budget, that's a double win. You get your bonus, you get the extra money. And I thought that was really a smart way to start empowering agents, because you have a limit, you have a cap, you control it, you encourage them, you reward them. And yet you don't necessarily just give them the key to spend as much as they want on any random customer for whatever reason, just to avoid having to talk to them. I thought that was a brilliant idea.
I love everything about that. There's one thing that makes me a little bit queasy, but it is the best way to do it that we have available today. I love, it's funny when you said that, I was thinking, yeah, you just set aside so much in budget to allow people to do things like bump up shipping and stuff, but giving the agents that as a budget that they control, I love that idea. I just think talk about empowering. Let them make the decision. Why not? I'm sure it's enough, giving the agents enough money to impact 10 to 20% of their interactions through something like this is not enough. It's not enough budget to break the company in any way, shape, or form. Knowing they get back what they don't spend gives them the incentive to be frugal, which I think is really powerful. The only thing about it that I think is right and appropriate but can be unfair is the customer feedback, because you're going to do that based on surveys. The people who do surveys are angry. You end up with, customer surveys on agents. Paying agents on customer surveys is fraud, I guess is the way to say it. There is no good answer. So sure, take a chance, but unless you have,
I think it depends on how you look at it. If you are rewarding customer service agents on a 5 out of 5 stars score, you're setting them up for failure. That's guaranteed. Because as you said, 9 customers out of 10, if they answer in survey, is because they're frustrated. The result is not going to be good. Then you get the number 10, which is, I had an absolutely amazing experience. I had to let the world know about this. But that's like the exception. Most of them, they would give a score because, it was not that good. I need to complain a little. But you don't have to set a target of 5 out of 5. You can just look at what was the previous score over the past 6 months. You just have to do a little bit better than you did in the past 6 months. And that is your benchmark. That is your target. And getting, better than you did in the past is actually a good target, beating your own score.
Fair enough. I guess the other element to this comes down to the volume of the interactions you're doing. If you get 1 or 2 customer reviews a month, there's just, the swings are too volatile. There isn't enough to score somebody fairly on. If you're getting, a review a day, then you probably have enough data that you can do it fairly. That's the only other piece to it, I would say. And, I've talked to a lot of contact centers about this, and everybody hates doing it, but everybody feels everybody. People hate doing it, but in the end, it's basing something on how the customer feels is really important, and it's the best way to handle an imperfect metric.
I agree. You'll never get anything perfect, and there are so many ways to do it. I mean, that I'm just sharing one of the many ways, but ultimately the goal is to empower people. If you have a better solution, if you have something that's more customized to your contact center, whatever it is, just find ways to empower your agent. It doesn't have to happen overnight. That can be something that happens incrementally, months after months, year after year. But there are ways to empower your agents. And what you usually find out when it's done well is agents are happier. We know they are the most expensive resource within your contact center, so you better make sure they are happy and they stick around. Not only that they stick around, but they stick around happily. That's always better for the company and the customer. And your customers tend to be happier, because if your agents care only about one thing, which is satisfying customers, well, ultimately that's great for the business. So it's usually a great move, just not an easy one.
Empowered, happy agents. What a great way to end this conversation. That's perfect.
Well, thank you so much for anonymous. Well, I actually know the name, but I'm not allowed to tell. The anonymous sender that sent us that story. I'd be interested to have a follow-up, if there is a follow-up story on that one. It apparently happened on time. Not sure if the person was happy it was a Christmas gift. Not sure if it would be a good story, but who knows. But thank you so much for sharing it.
We got a whole new podcast there.
Exactly. Well, keep creative, right? You keep creative. That you gotta come up with new ideas. And please keep the stories come through. We need more of them. And thank you again, Max. Any closing words?
No, thanks for digging this one up. This was a good one out of the mailbag. I'm liking the mailbag. This was a great story.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Max. Thank you, everyone. And I will talk to you next week.
That's great. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.